Do you know the ancient secret behind the Hogwarts letters and exactly how wizards are actually chosen? In the most secret tower of Hogwarts Castle, in that magical room where no ordinary person is allowed to enter, two mystical objects that determine the fate of the wizarding world have stood side by side for nearly 1,000 years. These are known as the Book of Acceptance and the Feather of Acceptance, and Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia could never have imagined that this ancient power would reach all the way to their home. While the Dursley family claimed to be living a completely normal life in their home at number 4 Privet Drive, they were filled with great fear. Their spoiled son Dudley was screaming and shouting amidst dozens of birthday presents, completely unaware of the magical storm approaching their home. So how did these magical objects come to be? When the 4 great founders of Hogwarts, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin built the castle, they also prepared these objects. To ensure no witch or wizard child would be overlooked, the founders personally imbued these unique objects with powerful charms. Godric Gryffindor enchanted the Feather of Acceptance, made from the feather of a rare stormbird with pure silver. Salazar Slytherin, meanwhile, imbued the dragon skin cover and parchment of the sorting book with a spell of infinite durability. From that moment on, the objects were bound to the world in such a way that they would sense every magical birth in Britain. This system, which even Albus Dumbledore cannot interfere with, functions flawlessly. The book and the feather begin tracking a child's magical potential from the moment of their birth. While Harry Potter lived in the dark cupboard under the stairs with the spiders, he did not know that his name had already been written in that golden book. His birth had caused a major upheaval in the wizarding world. Even when Uncle Vernon kidnapped Harry to a rocky cottage in the middle of the sea to block the letters, he thought he could stop the ancient magical mechanism. As the raging storm pounded the cottage's walls, time was running out. When the giant Rubeus Hagrid broke down the cabin door and burst inside, Harry Potter finally learned his true identity. Hagrid told him not only that he was a wizard, but also that he had been accepted to Hogwarts. As the heavy parchment letter, written in emerald green ink, trembled in Harry's hand, the doors to the wizarding world had opened for him forever. This letter was not merely an invitation, it was a document of a destiny already sealed. For Hermione Granger, the process was entirely different. This brilliant girl, born into a Muggle family, experienced the biggest shock of her life when she received the letter in her living room. Even before Hermione knew she was a witch, the Sorting Hat had already recorded the small, involuntary spells she cast. After receiving the letter, she became so passionately devoted to the wizarding world that she memorized all her textbooks. Ron Weasley, on the other hand, came from an old line of wizards. For him, being selected for Hogwarts wasn't surprising news. Rather, it was an inescapable family tradition that placed immense pressure on him. Forced to use the hand-me-downs of Bill, Charlie, and Percy, Ron boarded the train with an old rat named Scabbers, feeling the weight of the great expectations placed on him. And what of Voldemort? Before he became the Dark Lord, he lived in a gloomy orphanage in the Muggle world as Tom Riddle, a pale-skinned orphan with piercing eyes. The Feather of Fate had sensed long ago that he was deliberately and willfully harming the other children at the orphanage, using his magic with a dark intent. When Albus Dumbledore visited him, the objects in the room suddenly burst into flames. When Tom Riddle learned he could control his magic, the dark arrogance within him grew even stronger. As he boarded the Hogwarts Express, he was taking the 4 steps toward that dark future in which he would rule the entire wizarding world. When the names of all these children were gathered in that great book in the locked tower, Minerva McGonagall gave the order to dispatch the owls. A large, noble, snowy owl carried the letters through the dark storms. Owls are not merely ordinary messengers. They are ancient creatures endowed with magical tracking abilities. When hundreds of owls fill the sky at midday, the Muggle world can never fathom what is happening. An owl senses the exact coordinates of the child it is targeting, even if they are hiding. A beautiful barn owl gently lands on one of the castle's tower windows in the early morning light. Professor Minerva McGonagall opens the large window in the tower, collects the return letters brought by the owls one by one, and updates the list. In the magical world, no child's fate is left unresolved. The flawless operation of the Book of Acceptance and the Feather of Acceptance is the most rigorous and infallible certification of wizarding blood in the world. The feather approaches the parchment and begins to write a new name in gold ink. The name of a child with weak magical ability, simply because they came from a noble family, could be ruthlessly rejected by the dragonskin book in that tower. This unshakable enchantment, cast by the founders, has meticulously tested the pure magical will of every candidate who set foot in the castle for centuries. Even Albus Dumbledore, as he examined the parchment pages in the tower, always felt great admiration for the justice of this infallible mechanism. Harry Potter, shaken by the whispers of wizards in the dark and gloomy rooms of the Leaky Cauldron, was only just beginning to realize that his own destiny was written in golden letters. When the enchanted bricks of Diagon Alley swung wide open, a whole new universe, adorned with dragon heartstrings and phoenix feathers, unfolded before Harry's eyes. The gleaming gold galleons in the underground labyrinths of Gringotts Wizarding Bank whispered to Harry of the noble past his aunt had hidden. Amid the thousands of narrow boxes in Ollivander's wand shop, the sudden warmth spreading through Harry's fingers announced that sacred moment when the wand chose the wizard. Arriving at King's Cross Station on the morning of September 1st, Harry found himself all alone before the seemingly impassable stone barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Guided by Molly Weasley, Harry ran fearlessly toward the barrier, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself in front of the red Hogwarts Express. As the train glided through the shadows of mountains and deep lakes, the chocolate frogs he shared with Ron Weasley in the compartment were the first foundation of true friendship. By the time Hermione Granger, who had memorized every spell in the books, and Neville Longbottom, who had lost his frog, joined them, the castle's magical web had already been woven. When Draco Malfoy's arrogant whispers appeared at the compartment door, Harry drew that unshakable line between light and darkness in this new world. As the hoots of owls echoed from the castle's dark pier overlooking the lake, Hagrid's lantern guided the first years. The children, crossing the smooth lake in small boats, were spellbound when they saw Hogwarts Castle rising into the sky in all its splendor atop the hill. When the castle's massive oak doors swung wide open, Professor McGonagall greeted them with her disciplined and noble demeanor. As they stepped through the threshold of the Great Hall, the thousands of candles suspended in the air and the enchanting ceiling reflecting the stars took everyone's breath away. The sorting hat, with its old, worn, and patched body perched on a four-legged wooden stool, waited for the first years to be sorted into their houses. The large tear in the brim of the hat suddenly opened like a mouth and began to bellow the ancient song breathed by the founder's spirits throughout the hall. As each student sat on the stool, the hat seeped into their mental palaces, sifting through their hidden talents and deepest desires one by one. The fate of the wizarding world continues to be written in the golden ink of these two ancient objects, waiting in the darkness of that locked tower. Are you really sure that at this very moment, the acceptance feather isn't gliding toward the parchment to write your name?